Sometimes I'm taken back to those early adolescent years, in the days before anime was so commonplace, but instead something that felt elusive and exciting. The more limited the access to it, the more curiosity began to grow about this strange new medium that was beginning to dominate our young lives, and take us places and teach us things that we would never expect. Back in the early 2000s, unless you were rich enough and willing to spend fistfuls of cash for an anime VHS tape that maybe only had 3 episodes worth of content on it, well then you were at the mercy of whatever was airing on TV. Dragon Ball Z had taken the world by storm, and it showed us something that we didn't know we were missing. It had these long, stretching narratives and character arcs over the course of many episodes. It had violence on a level that was unheard of from American episodic cartoons, and it also taught us valuable lessons about strength, discipline, and overcoming impossible obstacles. That maybe if you put forth enough work, enough effort, you trained hard enough, you would reach the next level. And as Dragon Ball Z became the standout series on Toonami, it also managed to open doors for more anime to hit the airwaves alongside it. We had Sailor Moon and Ronin Warriors around the same time, but soon we got access to even more. We got the first ever Gundam series to air here in the West with Gundam Wing, the Bounty Hunter Space Adventure series Outlaw Star, a show about a wandering swordsman trying to make amends for his past in Rurouni Kenshin, and against all odds, a harem action comedy series about one man and several space babes that constantly want to jump his bones. That was one of my favorites. But beyond these individual shows, coming home after school and watching Toonami felt like an event and an experience, because it never felt like they just threw these shows on just to have something to entertain the kids and brain rot them for a few hours. Instead, it always felt like it was taking these stories and these characters seriously, and that those that were putting the block together understood them on the same level as the people watching them did. Having the opening animation, the robot host Tom, voiced by Steve Bloom, the intros that were specifically put together for each show, and above everything else, the bumpers and promos that Toonami had to offer. And I know it sounds weird to anybody who wasn't there or around to experience Toonami in its peak years, because as much as we loved the shows themselves, we also loved the promos and cutaways that were just as much of a nightly event. These weren't just 30-second ads that told you to watch something else, but instead, they were meticulously constructed and edited in an AMV style that would combine the airing series into a montage which ultimately had a point to make and was an effort for Toonami to speak directly to its audience, all about the things that they may be going through in their own lives. If you talk to many people around my age bracket, there is a deep, and I mean deep, connection that we all still seem to have with this specific era of anime, and I do think that Toonami is a large part of the reason why. Not only was it one of the few places you could even find anime, but it also didn't dismiss it or treat it like it was something weird or nerdy. It took the material and its messages seriously, and we respected them for that because they respected us. For instance, the most impactful promo is titled Broken Promises, Dreams, and it carries with it this feeling of potential within all of us when we're younger. The quote from Outlaw Star that plays over it, "A boy has a right to dream. There are endless possibilities stretched out before him." Or, "Nobody is going to give you a map. You have to walk your own path." These are the things that, while in our adolescence, as many of these shows edited for television as they may be, were definitely being consumed by. It was kind of like that 12 to 18-year-old bracket. And these promos offered something that maybe we really needed to hear at the time. So many decisions that you make during that time of life will inform who you are, and many of the series that aired were about young characters making some kind of difficult choice that set them onto their own adventures. Or in the case of Rurouni Kenshin, or even Outlaw Star to a degree, it showed men that made great mistakes, and the painstaking efforts they would take to try to move forward after a life of bad decisions. In other words, Toonami offered a level of respect to its audience that young people, especially those that liked anime at the time, where it was very uncool to do so, didn't normally get to experience. It was this little pocket of time between 4 to 7 p.m., where the uncomfortable, chaotic world of life and school could just melt away, and you felt like you were connected to something that maybe you didn't feel like in your regular every day-to-day life. Maybe for the first time, you felt like you weren't alone, that other people also enjoyed this stuff and took it seriously. Or maybe if they didn't at first, this was the way we got that to happen. Toonami made you look at these series in a different light than you would have if they just aired regularly. The other extended promo focusing on space, which features a lot of clips from Gundam Wing, has also stuck with me for many years. Space itself feeling like a metaphor for longing for something else, something that's out of reach, a place so far away from what we could be experiencing in our daily lives. There was the promo about rage that focused heavily on Vegeta, and the host Tom was talking about what many of us may have been feeling at the time and giving a positive outlook from the point of view of a character that tends to handle his rage poorly. But beyond all that, Toonami promos had a way of hyping you up more than anything else. Anything that went through the editing process of these promotional materials came out looking like the most intense, action-filled, adrenaline train of a series you've ever seen in your life. In the case of Dragon Ball Z, that was true, but many of the shows, a show such as Tenchi Muyo, that might have some action in it, sure, but it was primarily a slice-of-life comedy series, the promos had it feeling just as intense as Dragon Ball Z. The same is true when Toonami finally got Dragon Ball, because DBZ aired first over here, so when Dragon Ball came around, even though it starts out very comedic and silly, promo still made you feel like it was going to be just as action-heavy as DBZ itself. The people making these promos knew how to edit, and they knew how to craft a series trailer and promotion better than most all modern-day movie trailers, in my opinion. I don't know what special sauce they were using, but they nailed it every single time. A lot of that, in my opinion, comes down to the fact that I think they really did watch and understand the shows that they were airing, and so that made these AMV-style edits that much more impactful. Of course, they also had the secret ingredient, which was the voice of Peter Cullen, legendary voice actor and mostly known for the voice of Optimus Prime in Transformers, managed to narrate many of the trailers and clips for the Toonami shows, and something about the sound of his voice, whether it's because he's just so associated with our childhoods or not, it added an extra level of hype to every single promo that he was featured in.
The only hope for the colonies, 5 elite soldiers and their legendary mobile suits called Gundam.
Also, who remembers the super short bumpers when DBZ would go in and out from commercial breaks? Like, how do you make a 10-second clip feel so exciting? Well, of course, Toonami managed to do it.
Don't ever try to stop me. Dragon Ball Z will be back in a moment.
So whether we were conscious of it or not at the time, Toonami wasn't just exposing us to the medium of anime, it was also kind of raising us in a weird way as we were growing up. Tom in the spaceship drifting across the stars, talking about chasing our potential as we were watching the potential of Gohan finally be unleashed. We grew up with Gohan, but we were also growing up with ourselves. I think part of the reason that Super Saiyan 2 Gohan in the Cell arc felt so important and impactful to us is because this is probably the first time that we watched an animated show where we saw a character actually age and grow up. And this was happening while we were also growing up. The catharsis of Gohan realizing his potential coincided with us, figuring out ourselves in life and coming into our own. And through all of our trials and tribulations, Toonami never looked down on us, only motivated us to reach for the stars. I may be a bitter old man now, but I am also so grateful I grew up in the era that I did and got to experience Toonami at the right time. The generation before me was a little too soon for it, and as a result, many of them still dismiss anime to this day because they never got into it when they were younger. And as for the generation after me, they still had good shows like Naruto and Bleach. Things were evolving a bit, but I would never take back the era that I grew up in as a kid. In the late 90s, early 2000s, it was such a unique and specific period of time that will never again be replicated. Nowadays, anime is more popular than ever. It's available everywhere, every streaming service has it, and new anime films are making tons of money at the box office with wide mainstream appeal. Now, I'm not against anime being super popular now, and sure, it has changed a lot, both in its aesthetic, presentation, which series are popular, how it's distributed, how common it is. It's very, very different from the world I grew up in. But I'm glad people love it, and it's natural for things to change over time. But there will always be something very special and valuable to me about the time where it was much harder to find anime. Yet for just a few hours every day, those that wanted to discover finally felt validated. And for a young, confused kid that didn't know where he would be in the years to come, it was a time that made it feel like the future was still so filled with hope and possibilities.